Okay, so we all know a book has some serious staying power when people are still talking about it decades later, right? And Stephen Covey's Seven Habits is definitely one of those books.
Absolutely, and it's still so relevant today.
It really is.
It's amazing how Covey doesn't just tell you what to do to be effective. He really digs into the why behind it.
Yeah.
He lays out these universal principles, not just quick fixes, that can really change how you see the world and your place in it.
I love that because that's what really stuck with me after reading it is that idea of changing how you see things. And he starts with this concept of a paradigm shift, right?
Absolutely.
It's like we each have these mental maps that shape our whole perception of the world.
It's like, remember that famous optical illusion Covey uses in the book? The old woman, young lady?
Oh, right.
It's like two people can look at the exact same image, but see completely different things depending on their existing paradigms.
Oh, it's like one of those once you see it, you can't unsee it things.
Is a
But in this case, it's not an image. It's like realizing that we're all seeing the world through these filters that we might not even be aware of.
Exactly. And those filters influence not just what we see, but how we interpret situations, how we react to people.
Basically, our whole experience, yeah.
Covey's point is, if you want to make lasting change, you can't just tweak your behavior.
Yeah.
You have to go deeper and shift those fundamental paradigms, those mental maps that are driving everything else.
He even quotes Thoreau
Yeah.
right on this. Something about hacking at the leaves versus the root of a problem.
Yes. For every 1,000 hacking at the leaves of evil, there is one striking at the root. It's about changing from the inside out, not just putting on a new facade.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do you actually do that? How do you shift your paradigm? It feels very abstract.
Well, that's where the PC balance comes in.
Okay.
This is where Covey gets into the nitty-gritty of what true effectiveness looks like. P stands for production, like the results you're chasing. PC is your production capacity, the thing producing those results.
Okay, so if my P is like, I want to write a hit song,
Yes.
my PC would be like my musical talent, my creative process.
Exactly. And your well-being, your relationships, anything that fuels your ability to produce those results. Covey uses this great analogy of the goose and the golden eggs.
Right, you can't just keep trying to get more golden eggs without taking care of the goose that's laying them.
Exactly.
Otherwise, you just wear it out.
You'll be the most effective burnt-out person.
Right, exactly, exactly.
So think about it in your own life.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever been so focused on a goal, on those golden eggs, that you neglected your health or your relationships or even just your own peace of mind?
Ouch. Yes. Deadlines, ambition, that always-on mentality.
Yes,
It's easy to fall into that trap, but you're right, it's ultimately unsustainable.
absolutely.
That's us, Covey would probably say, that's us operating from our circle of concern instead of our circle of influence.
Exactly. I was just about to say
Oh,
that
we want-
the circle of concern is all that stuff we worry about but can't directly control, other people's actions, the economy, global events.
Right.
Our circle of influence is smaller,
Yeah.
but way more powerful because it's all the things we can control.
Mm.
Our choices, our attitude, our efforts.
So proactive people focus their energy on that inner circle, on what they can actually impact, rather than getting bogged down in everything else.
Yeah, and Covey tells this great story about a frustrated executive who learns to do exactly that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was initially really bummed about his limited authority. He felt stuck.
Mm-hmm.
But then he made this conscious shift. He focused on deeply understanding his role, contributing where he could, and just consistently adding value.
And I'm guessing it didn't go unnoticed.
Not at all. He actually became indispensable to the company because he focused on expanding his influence through consistent action, not complaining about what he couldn't control.
Wow, what a story. It's like flipping the script right. Instead of dwelling on a problem, ask yourself, what's one tiny step I can take right now within my control to make even a small improvement?
Precisely.
I love that.
And that leads beautifully into the next habit, which Covey says is fundamental to effectiveness.
Yeah.
Begin with the end in mind.
Okay, I have to admit, the way he talks about this one is a bit intense. Like he wants us to visualize our own funeral.
It sounds a little morbid when you put it that way,
It does a little bit, yeah.
but it's actually brilliant.
Okay.
Think about it. What do you want people to say about you when you're gone?
Hmm.
What kind of impact do you want to have on the world?
Yeah, it's a real gut check on your values, right?
Right.
Are you actually living in a way that aligns with the person you want to be remembered as?
Exactly.
Wow.
And once you have that clarity, you can start making choices, big and small, that reflect those values.
That's huge, and actually a great place to pause for this first part of our deep dive on the 7 habits.
Yeah, it's funny. I think a lot of us go through life on autopilot a little bit, just reacting to things as they come up,
Totally.
instead of like really stepping back and saying, okay, what do I actually want my life to stand for?
It's so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day and lose sight of the bigger picture.
Yeah.
But that's why Covey's habit, too, begin with the end in mind, is so powerful. It's about taking that time for self-reflection, for defining your own personal mission statement, so to speak.
Yeah, and he actually suggests we actually write it down, right? Craft a personal constitution for our lives.
Absolutely.
It feels almost audacious, but in a good way.
It's about taking those values and putting them into action.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there, as the saying goes.
And that brings us to habit 3, but first things first, and this is where the rubber meets the road, right? This is where we're talking time management, prioritization, all that stuff.
Yes, breaking free from the urgency trap. Oh, I love that.
Learning to say no to the things that don't matter so you can say yes to what does.
It's so hard, though. It's so hard. And he has that fantastic tool, the time management matrix, which really helps visualize it.
Yes.
It's like about focusing on quadrant 2, those important but not urgent tasks, but easier said than done, am I right?
It takes practice.
Yeah.
You know, one thing Covey says is to schedule time for those quadrant 2 activities in your week before everything else gets filled up.
Oh.
Like, make an appointment with yourself for your own priorities.
That's such a good way to look at it. It's like we wouldn't cancel a meeting with a client or like a doctor's appointment
Exactly.
at the last minute, but our own goals, sometimes they don't get that same respect.
And that's where that personal mission statement comes in handy.
Oh, yeah.
Because when you're faced with these competing demands, you can ask yourself, does this activity truly align with my values and goals? If not, maybe it's time to delegate, defer, or just say no.
Be strong, set those boundaries.
It's about being intentional with your time and energy.
Absolutely, because otherwise it is so easy to get swept up in the current of other people's priorities and just be reacting all the time.
And that's where these next 4 habits really come in. You know,
Yeah.
they build on this foundation of personal effectiveness, and they move us into this realm of interdependence.
Right, because we don't live in a vacuum. So much of life is about our interactions with other people.
Exactly. And that's where Covey introduces this brilliant metaphor of the emotional bank account.
Oh, I love this one. Tell me more.
It's such a simple but powerful concept, right? Every interaction we have with someone either makes a deposit or withdrawal from that relationship bank account.
Okay.
Just like with a financial account, consistent deposits build trust, while withdrawals erode it.
So what are some of those key deposits we can make?
Covey outlines 6 major ones.
Okay.
Understanding the individual, attending to the little things, keeping commitments, clarifying expectations, showing personal integrity, and apologizing sincerely when we make a withdrawal.
I love how he emphasizes the little things. It's not always about these grand gestures, right?
No,
It's the little things.
it's about those consistent everyday acts of kindness and consideration.
Yeah.
It's about really listening when someone's talking to you,
Yeah.
showing up for them when they need you, following through on your promises.
It all adds up.
Those seemingly small things add up to a huge reserve of trust and goodwill.
He tells that really good story, I think it's in this section of the book, about his son and the neglected yard. You know that one?
Yes, it's a great example of how delegating with trust, rather than just like barking orders, can actually strengthen relationships.
Yeah, yeah.
His son was tasked with taking care of the yard, but he wasn't really doing a great job.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of criticizing or micromanaging, Covey sat down with him, listened to his perspective,
Right.
and together they came up with a plan that worked for both of them.
It reminds me of that saying, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Oh, I love that.
It's about showing genuine interest, empathy, respect.
And that leads beautifully into habit 5. Seek first to understand, then to be understood.
Which is so important. Yes.
This is where he really dives into the art of empathic listening.
Which is more than just hearing the words someone is saying, right?
Yes.
It's about really, really trying to see the world through their eyes, to understand their perspective, even if you don't agree with it.
Precisely. And Covey talks about how we often jump to solutions or judgments before we've even truly understood where the other person is coming from.
All the time.
We interrupt, we give unsolicited advice,
Oh, yeah.
we try to fix things before we've taken the time to truly listen.
We're so solution-oriented in our society.
Yes.
Sometimes you just need to listen.
Exactly. But he argues that this kind of listening, this genuine effort to understand, it's the key to unlocking true connection and collaboration.
And he tells that story, gosh, what is it? It's like a father and a son, and they're really struggling to communicate. The father's like, he doesn't respect me, and the son's like, he doesn't understand me.
Classic breakdown in communication.
Oh, it's so relatable though, right? Where both people feel like they're not being heard or understood.
Absolutely. But then the father makes this conscious effort to shift his approach. Instead of lecturing or trying to impose his own views,
Oh,
he
interesting.
just sits down with his son and listens.
Wow.
He asks these open-ended questions. He really tries to see the world from his son's perspective.
What happens?
It's incredible. The transformation is remarkable. As the son feels heard and understood, he starts to open up.
It makes sense.
He shares his feelings, his dreams, his fears, and as the father truly listens, he begins to see his son in a whole new light.
It's true. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give someone is simply our undivided attention, that willingness to truly understand where they're coming from.
Exactly. And from that place of understanding, amazing things can happen.
I bet.
It opens the door to collaboration, to finding win-win solutions, to creating something greater together.
And that brings us to habit 6, synergize,
Yes!
which just sounds exciting. Tell me more.
Covey describes it as this creative process where people with different perspectives come together, they value their differences, and they collaborate to find solutions that are better than any individual could have come up with on their own.
It's not about compromise. It's like it's bigger than that, right?
It's about finding that third alternative that transcends those individual limitations.
It's like, you know, when you're in like a brainstorming session
Yes.
and like the energy's really flowing and everyone's feeding off each other's creativity.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you have this idea that's like so much bigger and bolder than anything you could come up with on your own.
That's the magic of synergy.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that everyone has something unique to contribute, and those different perspectives can actually enrich our understanding and lead to better solutions.
So how do we create the conditions for synergy to happen?
That's the million-dollar question.
What are the key ingredients?
Well, Covey highlights a few essential elements. First, there needs to be a high level of trust,
Okay.
as we already talked about. People need to feel safe to share their ideas, knowing they won't be judged or dismissed.
Absolutely.
Second, there needs to be that win-win mentality,
Mm-hmm.
that belief that it's possible to find solutions that benefit everyone involved.
Yeah.
And third, you need that foundation of empathic listening,
Okay.
that willingness to truly understand and value those different perspectives.
So it's like creating a space, kind of like we were talking about with the listening, where everyone feels seen and heard and respected.
Yes.
Where their contributions are valued and they feel empowered to like bring their full selves to the table.
And when those conditions are in place, magic can happen.
I bet.
Covey tells this fascinating story in the book about this company that was struggling with this complex problem.
I love a good real life example.
Yeah, so they were trying to develop this new product,
Okay.
but they kept hitting these roadblocks.
Mm-hmm.
The engineers had one vision, the marketers had another. The salespeople were getting frustrated because they felt like no one was listening to their feedback from the field.
It's like that classic siloed thinking, right? Where everyone's just focused on their own little piece of the puzzle instead of the big picture.
And the CEO decided to try something different.
What do you do?
He brought together this diverse group of employees from all different departments, different levels of the organization.
Okay.
And instead of just presenting their individual perspectives, he created this safe space for open dialogue and brainstorming.
So he set the stage for synergy to occur by fostering that trust, encouraging those diverse viewpoints, and emphasizing the importance of finding a solution that worked for everyone.
Exactly. And the results were amazing.
Really?
Yeah, as people started sharing their insights, listening to each other's ideas, building on each other's thoughts, they started to see the problem in a whole new light.
Wow.
They generated these innovative solutions that none of them could have come up with alone. And the process itself became so engaging and exciting
That's great.
that people were energized and motivated to actually implement these solutions.
That's fantastic. That's such a good story.
It's a great example of how synergy can unlock that creativity and lead to those unexpected outcomes.
It's not just teamwork. It's not just cooperation. It's like, it's bigger than that.
It transcends those individual limitations.
It does. And it all comes back to those fundamental principles of personal effectiveness, right? Like being proactive, beginning with the end in mind, putting first things first, and then building on that foundation with those public victory habits of seeking to understand, creating win-win solutions, and embracing synergy.
It's like a spiral, you
Yeah.
know? Each habit reinforces the others, leading to greater effectiveness in all areas of life.
But I'm curious, how do we keep that momentum going? Life happens.
Yeah.
We get busy, we fall back into old habits. How do we stay the course and not burn out?
That's where that final habit comes in. Habit 7, sharpen the saw.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that we are our greatest asset,
Mm-hmm.
and we need to invest in ourselves regularly to maintain that effectiveness.
Oh, I love that. It's like that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. We have to take care of ourselves first.
Covey uses this metaphor of the lumberjack who's trying to cut down a tree with a dull saw.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
it takes forever, so much effort and time, and the results are poor.
Yeah.
But if that lumberjack just takes a little bit of time to sharpen the saw, the work becomes easier, faster, more effective.
Right. So it's like investing in yourself.
Exactly.
So you can then, in turn, better serve others and achieve your goals.
Precisely. If we don't take time to renew ourselves physically, spiritually, mentally, socially, emotionally,
It's holistic. Yeah.
we will burn out, we'll become ineffective, and we'll just diminish our capacity to contribute.
It's not selfish to take care of yourself. It's essential.
The opposite of selfish.
Yeah, it is. It's essential. And he breaks this whole renewal process down into 4 dimensions: physical, spiritual, mental, and social emotional.
He does.
So let's dive into each one a little bit. What are some things that people can do to kind of sharpen the saw in each of these areas?
Let's start with the physical. It's about taking care of your body through proper nutrition, exercise, and rest.
Okay.
Creating habits that support your physical health and well-being so you have the energy and vitality to live your best life.
So it's not about looking good in a bathing suit. It's about feeling good.
It's about feeling good and having the physical capacity to do the things you want to do.
Yes, exactly. Love it.
Covey says regular exercise is one of the most powerful ways to renew your physical dimension.
Mm-hmm.
It strengthens our bodies, boosts our mood, reduces stress, improves our overall health.
And it doesn't have to be anything crazy, right? It could just be like going for a walk,
Absolutely.
taking the stairs instead of the elevator.
Whatever works for you.
Yeah, exactly. Finding what works for you.
The key is to find activities you enjoy and that you can incorporate into your routine consistently.
It's about those small, sustainable changes.
Exactly.
Love it. What about the spiritual dimension?
This is about connecting with your deepest values, finding meaning and purpose in life, tapping into that source of inspiration that transcends our daily concerns.
Yeah.
This could be meditation, prayer, spending time in nature, immersing yourself in great music or literature, whatever speaks to your soul.
It's about feeding our souls, not just our bodies.
Exactly. Covey shares this story about this doctor who prescribes a day of spiritual renewal for this stressed-out executive.
What?
Yeah. And he tells him to spend the day in a place that holds special meaning for him, to reflect on his life and just connect with his deepest values.
Wow.
The executive's skeptical at first,
I bet.
but he comes back transformed by the experience.
I love that.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that we all need to find ways to nourish our spirits, reconnect with what truly matters.
Yeah, totally. And find that source of strength and inspiration that can carry us through the tough times.
Absolutely. And this renewal then flows into the mental dimension, expanding our minds, learning new things, developing our intellectual capacities, reading books, taking courses, engaging in stimulating conversations, or just being curious,
Yeah, just staying curious.
exploring new ideas.
Keeping our minds sharp, not letting them get stagnant or stuck in those old patterns of thinking.
Covey says that learning is a lifelong process,
Yeah.
and we should never stop seeking knowledge and expanding our understanding of the world around us.
I love that. And so that mental renewal then feeds into the social emotional dimension, right?
It does.
Which is all about our relationships and our connections.
It's about nurturing our relationships, connecting with others, and contributing to something larger than ourselves.
So it's about recognizing that we're not these isolated individuals, that we're part of something bigger, and our well-being is connected to the well-being of others.
And all 4 dimensions of this renewal, physical, spiritual, mental, and social emotional, they're interconnected.
Yeah.
They're all important. When we take care of ourselves in one area, it impacts the others.
Right.
It creates that cycle of growth and well-being.
It all ties together.
It does.
Yeah, I love it.
Living a life that's both successful and significant.
This has been an incredible deep dive. We've explored so much.
We really have.
Paradigm shifts to synergy, to the importance of sharpening the saw.
It's a lot to take in.
I know, but I'm feeling very inspired and energized to put these principles into practice in my own life.
Me too.
It really is amazing how Covey ties all these habits together, showing how they build on each other to create this framework for a truly effective life.
It's brilliant, really.
It is, but I keep thinking back to that lumberjack analogy.
Yeah.
even with a sharp saw, you still need to know how to use it, right?
You do. You can't just like read a book and expect everything to magically change.
Exactly.
It's not enough to just understand these principles intellectually.
Yeah.
The real magic happens when we put them into practice.
It's like anything else, right? Knowledge is one thing, but action is what really matters. And that's where some of those more practical tools and strategies that Covey talks about really come in handy, like that time management matrix. I can totally see how understanding those 4 quadrants can be a game changer when it comes to prioritizing, but how do you actually apply that in the real world?
It's so easy to get overwhelmed, right?
Oh, yeah.
But one of the simplest, most effective things you can do that Covey talks about is scheduling time for those quadrant 2 activities.
Okay.
The important but not urgent ones.
Yes.
Before your week gets hijacked by everything else.
So literally block out time in my calendar for planning, for relationship building.
Yes.
For those things that we all know are important.
Yes.
But we tend to push aside when things get busy.
Because if you don't, trust me, someone else's urgent demands will.
Oh, they will. 100% they will fill that space.
It will take up all your time.
It's like making appointments with yourself for your top priorities.
That is such a good way to look at it, because we wouldn't cancel on someone else.
Exactly. You know, like if we had a meeting with a client or a doctor's appointment, we wouldn't just blow it off because something else came up, but we do that with ourselves all the time. We do. So true.
We let ourselves down.
Yes, exactly.
But when we treat our own goals and priorities with that same level of respect,
yes,
that's when things start to shift.
It's true. And this is where, again, I think having that personal mission statement is so key.
Absolutely.
Because when you're feeling that overwhelm, when you're feeling pulled in a million directions, it can be that touchstone, that compass.
That North Star.
Yes, exactly.
To help you make decisions that are aligned with your values.
It's like a gut check, right?
Yes.
Does this task, this commitment, this distraction, does it actually move me closer to the person I want to be?
That's the question.
To the life I want to create. And if it doesn't, then it's time to delegate, defer, or just say no.
Learn to say no.
It's hard.
It is.
But so important.
It is. And remember, every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else.
That is so true. It's such a good reminder.
Make sure you're saying yes to the things that truly matter.
And it's not just about managing our tasks and our time, but also managing our energy.
Yes.
Our emotions or interactions, which brings us back to that metaphor of the emotional bank account.
It's so powerful.
It really is, because it really highlights how every interaction can either be a deposit or a withdrawal.
Every single one.
In that relationship bank account.
And those little deposits, they're so important.
Yeah, and they come in so many forms. It's not always about the grand gestures, right? It's about the little things, that everyday kindness, consideration, respect.
It's about really listening when someone's talking to you, not just waiting for your turn to speak. It's about showing up for the people you care about in big ways and small ways.
Being reliable.
Following through on your commitments, even when it's not convenient.
It's about being that person who people can count on, who shows up with integrity and authenticity.
Yes, exactly.
Because when we make those consistent deposits, it creates that reserve of trust.
It does.
That allows us to navigate the challenges, the disagreements, the inevitable conflicts that arise in any relationship.
Because you built that strong foundation.
Exactly.
To weather those storms.
It's like they say, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today.
I love that.
And I feel like the same is true for our relationships. We can start making those deposits today.
Absolutely.
Every interaction, no matter how small.
Exactly. Small things often make a big difference.
It's those little moments of connection that really matter.
They do. They really do.
But it's not just about making deposits. We also have to be mindful of the withdrawals we're making.
That's true.
Because even those small acts of disrespect, of thoughtlessness, those broken promises,
they chip away at that foundation of trust.
Exactly. It's like that saying, it takes a lifetime to build a good reputation, but you can lose it in a minute.
Oh, that's so true.
And I think that applies to our relationships as well. We have to be intentional about nurturing them.
Yes.
Just like we would any other valuable asset in our lives.
And that intentionality extends to all areas of our lives, you know? Our physical health, our spiritual well-being, our intellectual growth.
It's all connected, right?
It is. Remember that final habit?
Sharpen the saw.
Sharpen the saw.
Yes. It's about making time for self-care.
Is.
Or those activities that nourish our minds, our bodies, our souls.
Exactly. And that looks different for everyone. The key is to find what works for you, what fills your cup, what helps you feel energized and inspired and just aligned with your best self.
Yes, and to give ourselves permission to do those things, to prioritize our own well-being.
It's not selfish.
It's essential
It's essential.
because we can't show up fully for others if
Right.
we're running on empty ourselves.
Exactly. It's about creating a life that's both successful and sustainable.
I love that, both fulfilling and impactful, and that's what I appreciate so much about Covey's work, you know? It's not about achieving some external measure of success.
Right.
It's about cultivating that inner strength, that integrity, that alignment with your values.
It's about becoming the best version of yourself.
Yes, exactly. And then letting that radiate outwards into all areas of your life, your relationships, your work, your community.
It's a ripple effect.
It is. It really is. This has been such an incredible deep dive. I always learn so much from these conversations.
Me too. It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
Likewise, and for everyone listening, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the 7 habits of highly effective people. We hope you found it valuable, insightful, and maybe even a little bit inspiring.
Remember, the journey of personal effectiveness is ongoing. It's not about perfection. It's about progress.
So be kind to yourself along the way, celebrate your wins, learn from your setbacks.
And never stop growing.
Beautifully said. Until next time.